Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. My left leg was amputated when the car accident happened. I pushed Logan Shen out of the way. He stood there looking lost, ignoring everything, but my left leg got caught in the wheel. Out of gratitude, he married me, the girl who now sat in a wheelchair. We spent over a decade together, accompanying each other through life, hand in hand. Although there were occasional bumps along the way, I believe that overall my life was stable and happy until the day I died from respiratory failure caused by chronic myelitis. He sat in front of my grave, rambling on. He said, "You lost your left leg to save me, and I was trapped, forced to stay by your side for more than 10 years. Now that you're dead, I'm finally free. In this lifetime, we're even. If there's a next life, no matter how high the mountains or how wide the rivers, may we never meet again." After finishing those words, he set fire to our marriage certificate right there in front of my grave. 3 months later, he remarried in a high-profile ceremony, inviting guests from all over. I recognized the bride. It was his former first love, Emily Lynn. After exchanging rings, he pulled her tightly into his arms, his voice choking with emotion, saying, "All these years you and our daughter have suffered so much." When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day the accident happened. Given a second chance at life, this time I decided to respect his wishes. The blinding summer sunlight made my eyes ache. The hot air rising from the ground curled around my calves, the sensation so real. It made my heart tremble. Instinctively, I lowered my head. When my gaze fell on the left leg, still perfectly intact beneath the hem of my dress, my emotions spiraled out of control. It had been far too long since I had last felt such a solid connection to the ground. Beside me, Logan Shen, who was lowering his head to type rapidly on his phone, looked up in surprise. Seeing tears streaming down my face, he immediately grew tense and asked, "What's wrong? Why are you crying all of a sudden?" I slowly lifted my tear-filled eyes and looked through the misty blur at the man in front of me. Logan Shen, at 22 years old, was incredibly handsome. His whole being radiated youthful energy. His brows were relaxed, his eyes clear and bright, free from the exhaustion that would later seep into his gaze. I had almost forgotten. Before we got married, he had been so full of vigor and spirit. Noticing my stare, Logan's handsome brows furrowed slightly. That tiny, nearly imperceptible change tightened my heart with a chill. In my past life, whenever he thought I was being unreasonable, he would look at me with this same cold and condescending expression, making me feel desperate and ashamed. He reached out, gently wiping away the tears from my face, sighing, "You're still mad about me getting into a fight and ending up in detention, aren't you? I've explained it to you so many times. That bastard tried to assault Emily, and I smashed a bottle over his head out of anger." In that situation, I took a step back, avoiding his touch, and interrupted him softly. "You don't have to explain. It had nothing to do with me. Who you chose to save was your choice." For a moment, Logan Shen froze, the rest of his words stuck in his throat. After a long pause, he frowned and asked in a strained voice, "What do you mean by that?" I glanced again at my intact left leg and replied calmly, "Exactly what it sounds like. Oh, and the compensation money I paid on your behalf just now, plus the medical expenses I covered earlier for the injured party, adds up to 57,170 yuan. That was the money I saved up from part-time jobs to pay off my student loans. Please pay it back as soon as possible." In my previous life, when I heard that Logan Shen had been detained for fighting, I was so shocked that I thought my ears were playing tricks on me. He had always been a gentle, well-mannered student council leader, a model student, highly praised by all the teachers. He had never even raised his voice in an argument, let alone gotten into a street fight with thugs and ended up at the police station. After scrambling to gather the compensation money, signing all the paperwork, and bailing him out, I was completely stunned when I finally saw him. He was a mess. His face bruised and swollen, his right sleeve torn halfway off. The scars on his hands had already scabbed over. The sight of him like this felt completely disconnected from the Logan Shen I had known for 3 years in college. When he saw me, he rushed over in a panic to explain. He said that Emily and his friend had been harassed by a drunk at a bar. The man, completely wasted, had pinned Emily down on the couch and tried to assault her. He and Jason Lee just happened to walk in on the scene. "We couldn't just stand by and do nothing, right?" he said. I found it odd that he would suddenly go to a bar with friends, but Logan had always been sincere and warm-hearted, and I didn't have much reason to doubt his explanation. Though we were dating, we had always maintained our own spaces and freedom. In that kind of situation, even if it hadn't been a classmate, stepping up to help a girl about to be assaulted was the right thing to do. Besides, I knew Emily Lynn too. She had been Logan's and Jason's high school classmate, and now she was studying music performance at the School of Arts at our college. Although I didn't interact much with her, my impression of her was good. She was beautiful, poised, and carried herself with grace. I genuinely liked her. The only thing was Logan's method of saving her, smashing a bottle over the drunk's head, seemed a bit too extreme. Fortunately, the case was later settled through mediation. Otherwise, Logan would have ended up in prison. What puzzled me, though, was that when the police handled the case, they never mentioned anything about the drunk trying to assault Emily. They simply classified it as a case of fighting. It wasn't until many years later that I accidentally learned the truth from Logan's group of friends. That happened 2 months before I died. Logan's best friend, Jason Lee, who had also been our college classmate, had moved into his new villa and threw a housewarming party. Naturally, Logan brought me along. By then my health was already in bad shape. The nerve pain from chronic myelitis tormented me day and night. On top of that, I was suffering from PTSD. Constantly on edge, my emotions were volatile, making it hard for me to get along with those around me. So while everyone inside chatted and laughed, feeling like I didn't belong, I slipped away to the backyard garden. The moonlight was faint and cool, like a layer of thin frost scattered over the blooming tulips. I quietly sat in a wicker chair beneath the flowering trees, absent-mindedly brushing my fingers against my prosthetic left leg. While I sat there dazing off, counting the sparse stars in the sky, I suddenly heard a window on the first floor of the villa being pushed open. Warm golden light spilled out, and a few men's voices mixed with the crisp clicks of lighters drifted into the night air. "Logan, how do you even put up with Yuna Shu and her cold attitude?" someone said. "She won't even smile. Her face stayed icy all night, like we somehow offended her just by being there." I recognized the voice. It was Jason Lee, the host of tonight's housewarming party. Logan said something in a low voice, probably apologizing for me. Another guy chimed in laughing. "Come on, man. There are lots of disabled people in this world, but I've never seen anyone so self-centered about it. No offense, bro, but you really messed up your life. Yuna Shu looks at least 20 years older than you. She seriously freaked me out tonight. You really think she's worth giving up Emily Lynn for?" Yet another voice agreed. "Yeah, Logan, you totally lost your mind. Back in high school, you and Emily were the perfect couple, like a match made in heaven. Even the principal turned a blind eye to you two dating. And now you're throwing her away for someone like Yuna Shu, who's basically crippled. Are you insane?" The night breeze carried the faint smell of smoke into my nose. Hidden in the darkness, I stared at the man standing by the window. He was holding a cigarette, the tip glowing faintly in the dark, but he said nothing. Not a word. Jason Lee flicked the ash from his cigarette and sighed heavily. "All right, enough. You guys, don't forget it was Emily Lynn who betrayed Logan first. She started dating that rich senior with the fancy car after she got into college. Otherwise, Logan wouldn't have even looked twice at Yuna, who just happens to resemble Emily about 70%. He took a deep drag from his cigarette and pressed it out in the ashtray, continuing, "And don't forget, if it weren't for you guys pushing him to get back with Emily after they broke up, he wouldn't have gone to the bar in the first place. He wouldn't have gotten drunk, wouldn't have messed around with that thug, and Emily wouldn't have staged those photos to send to Logan. In the end, Logan snapped and smashed that guy's head with a bottle and nearly ended up in prison. If it hadn't been for Yuna Shu running around hiring lawyers and paying for the damages out of her own pocket, Logan would have been locked up for sure." After Jason finished speaking, there was a brief moment of silence among the group. Finally, someone muttered under their breath, "Man, why even bring up the past?" Someone said, "No matter how much he did for him, Logan marrying her should have been more than enough to repay that debt." I stood hidden in the darkness, feeling as if an invisible hand had gripped my throat, choking me. A tidal wave of despair crashed over me. So, that's how it really was. From their fragmented conversation, I finally pieced together the full truth. Logan Shen and Emily Lin had been each other's first love. He was outstanding. She was beautiful. Everyone said they looked like a couple straight out of a youthful romance novel. But after entering college, Emily met an upperclassman who drove a Ferrari. They broke up, and Logan was left devastated, drowning himself in alcohol. He waited outside Emily's dorm building for 3 days without ever hearing a word of explanation from her. Less than a year later, after Emily and that upperclassman broke up, she began reaching out to Logan frequently, wanting to get back together. By then, Logan and I were already officially dating. Still, she didn't give up. She would buy breakfast from the cafeteria every morning and wait outside the guy's dorm. She slipped perfumed envelopes with handwritten love letters into Logan's backpack, through Jason Lee. She kept it up for a whole year, but Logan never looked back. Emily reserved a hotel room, dressed in newly bought seductive lingerie, and planned to give closure to her youth by offering herself to him. Just once, she said, after which she would never bother him again. But Logan never showed up. Drunk and heartbroken, Emily sent Logan a video from the bar. In the video, a stranger's hand had already slipped inside her exposed neckline. Logan rushed to the bar in a panic, arriving just in time to see Emily pinned down in a booth, her skirt rumpled and disheveled. Blinded by rage, he rushed forward, yanked Emily away from the man, and started fighting him. Overpowered, Logan, in desperation, grabbed a wine bottle from the table and smashed it hard over the man's head. The rest I already knew. That single strike almost destroyed Logan's entire future. The other man refused any form of private settlement and insisted on pressing charges, determined to see Logan imprisoned. When I found out, I immediately reached out to a lawyer friend I had met during my part-time translation jobs, begging him to help. I personally visited the injured man in the hospital several times, humbling myself to plead for a settlement. After a grueling week of negotiations, the man finally relented, but only on the condition that Logan pay 50,000 yuan in compensation, plus cover all his medical expenses. Logan didn't want his parents to find out what had happened at school, so I quietly covered the more than 50,000 yuan needed, money that came from my scholarships and the income one had painstakingly earned from translation gigs throughout my college years. The car accident that led to my amputation happened on the way back to campus after picking Logan up from the detention center. He had taken a phone call, and then suddenly said he needed to cross the street to buy something at the supermarket across the road, telling me to head back to school first. As he crossed the street, a black sedan lost control and hurtled toward him. Without thinking, my body reacted faster than my mind. I sprinted forward and shoved him out of harm's way, but my left leg was caught under the car's wheel. The injuries were too severe. The tissues were extensively damaged. In order to save my life, the doctors had no choice but to amputate my left leg. When I was wheeled out of surgery, Logan tightly held my hand, his eyes swollen from crying, kneeling beside my hospital bed and vowing he would take care of me for the rest of his life. Afterward, I withdrew from school and gave up on pursuing graduate studies. I spent every day lying stiffly in the small, shabby apartment Logan had rented for me. My only outdoor activity was going to the hospital for rehabilitation training, always accompanied by Logan. 1 year later, Logan graduated from college. Unlike most graduates who started job hunting, he discussed with a few friends about starting a media company. He used the 800,000 yuan from my car accident compensation, the last bit left in my bank account, as the company's startup capital. My rehabilitation treatment was forced to stop. Years later, my attending physician told me that if I had been able to complete the full rehabilitation course, I might have never developed long-term chronic myelitis. Later on, Logan Shen took me home to meet his parents. When they found out their son's fiancée was a woman missing a leg, their faces instantly turned ashen, dark as iron. They didn't even bother to maintain a facade of politeness. Right there in front of friends and relatives, they pointed at my nose and unleashed a barrage of insults. They called me shameless, called me a burden who would only drag their son down. No matter what they said, I remained unmoved. What else could I do? I had lost my left leg saving Logan. I had developed severe PTSD from the amputation, suffering every night, struggling between terror and despair. Given my circumstances, Logan was already my best choice. Why should I be the one to give up? I refused. Even if it killed me, I refused. Unfortunately, my recovery after the amputation had not gone well. Chronic myelitis had ravaged me beyond recognition. By the time I wasn't even 40, my hair had turned almost completely white and my face had aged terribly. Logan hired 2 caretakers to look after me and deposited 200,000 yuan into my bank account every month as spending money. He rarely came home. Even when he did come back early, he would shut himself away in the study until late at night. He was always busy, always traveling on business trips. The night of Jason Lee's housewarming party, I had a severe PTSD episode. My body trembled uncontrollably. I had difficulty breathing and I was rushed to the hospital. I asked Logan to give me an explanation, but he kept avoiding me, refusing to show up. 2 months later, I died in the hospital from respiratory failure caused by the worsening myositis. Until the very last moment, Logan never appeared. Even after death, my soul lingered, unwilling to scatter. I watched as the nurse pulled a white sheet over my body. I watched as the sky outside gradually brightened. I watched as Logan finally slowly arrived to stand in front of my corpse, a look of relief and release written plainly across his face. After the funeral, he sat by my newly placed grave, lit a cigarette, and spoke. "Yuna, you lost your left leg saving me, and I spent over a decade trapped by your side out of obligation. Now that you're dead, I'm finally free. In this lifetime we're even. If there's a next life, no matter how high the mountains or how wide the rivers, may we never meet again." After saying that, he set fire to our marriage certificate right there in front of my grave. I followed Logan as he arrived at a luxurious villa. A woman wearing a silk nightgown ran barefoot out of the villa, throwing herself straight into his arms. It was Emily Lin. She wrapped her arms around his waist and softly comforted him. "Honey, don't be too sad. Now that she's dead, the 3 of us can finally live a good life together." Logan silently nodded. That evening, I even saw their daughter, who was already in her 3rd year of middle school. But Logan and I had only been married for 15 years. So, it turned out that the marriage I once thought was steady and happy had been completely rotten all along. Maybe the hatred swelling in my eyes was too obvious because Logan softened his tone, his voice almost pleading. "Come on, don't be mad. I'll scrape together the money and transfer it to you soon. Let's go get dessert at your favorite place." "Okay." I jerked my hand away in disgust as he tried to grab it. Logan froze awkwardly, his right hand suspended helplessly in midair. At that moment, his phone rang sharply. Glancing at the caller ID, he shot me a nervous look before hastily saying, "Yuna, just give me a second. I have to take this call." He quickly turned aside, covering the receiver with his hand, and walked a few steps away. "Hey, Emily," he said, lowering his voice, his words floating over on the breeze. "Don't worry, I've already taken care of everything. I'm out of the detention center." I didn't know what Emily said on the other end, but I could see the tips of his ears turning slightly red. In a low voice he asked, "Which brand of tampons do you use?" He paused, then said, "Okay, if your stomach hurts, just stay in the dorm. I'll go buy the tampons and some painkillers and bring them to you." When he finally hung up and turned back around, there was still a trace of tenderness lingering on his face that he hadn't had time to hide. Looking a bit embarrassed, Logan Shin said to me, "Yuna, something suddenly came up. How about you head back to school first? I'll buy the dessert later, and bring it to your dorm." I glanced at his phone, which kept lighting up with incoming messages, then said, "No need. I have something to do tonight, too. You go take care of your own business." The man let out a barely noticeable sigh of relief and nodded. "All right then. I'll head out first. Be careful on your way back." In the slanting sunlight, I watched him eagerly cross the street. Thinking of the terror and despair I had felt in my past life, that split-second moment when my left leg was caught under the car, I suddenly blurted out, "Logan Shin." He turned around, smiling brightly at me. "What is it, Yuna? Is there something else?" I looked at the man who, in my last life, had stayed by my side for nearly 20 years. The one who had once knelt by my hospital bed and sworn to cherish and love me for life. The evening glow bathed him in a faint blood-colored haze. Behind him, the pedestrian light turned green. "Be careful crossing the street," I said calmly. "Watch out or you might get hit by a car." Logan Shun was stunned for a moment, then grinned at me. "Don't worry, your boyfriend's life is way too big for that." I said nothing more, simply turned around and walked toward the campus. 10 seconds later, a sharp screech of brakes tore through the air, followed by a heavy thud. Someone screamed in panic. "Oh no, someone got hit. Call the police quick." I clutched the strap of my canvas bag, so tightly that my nails dug deep into my palm. A tide of people rushed toward the intersection where the accident had happened. My stomach churned violently, and I bent over, unable to hold back the fierce waves of nausea. I stumbled back to my dorm in a daze, only to meet a pair of hesitant eyes. My roommate, Yao Yao, looked like she wanted to say something but didn't dare. My whole body felt numb. I tossed my canvas bag and phone onto the desk and grabbed the nearby water cup, gulping down several mouthfuls. The cold liquid slid down my throat, somewhat quelling the burning turmoil in my chest. "What's wrong, Yao Yao?" I asked. She hesitated, then pushed her phone toward me. "This post just went up 5 minutes ago." "Yuna, why didn't you save me that day?" he asked, his voice small and trembling. "Or at least you could have stopped me. I know you could have." A tightness gripped my chest and bitterness spread through my limbs. Logan Shun, he had come back too. I stared coldly at him, refusing to answer. Being pinned under my gaze seemed to make him uneasy. He forced a bitter smile and sneered. "After all these days, Miss Xu finally remembers to visit me." "Yeah," I said flatly. "Because after the finals next month, it'll be summer vacation." Logan seemed confused by my words, frowning slightly. "This summer, I'm not planning to do internships anymore," I said. "I've made plans to travel abroad with friends, so I need you to pay back the 57,170 yuan you owe me." Logan stared at me wide-eyed in disbelief. His eyes turned red inch by inch. His voice broke a little as he said, "You came all the way to the hospital just to ask for money? Yuna, do you even have a heart? Have you ever really loved me?" His question left me momentarily speechless. He dared to ask me whether I had truly loved him. Then what about my lost leg? Did he think I gave it up willingly? Scenes from the past flashed through my mind. Jason Lee's words about how Logan had treated me as a stand-in for Emily Lin and Logan's own heartless speech at my grave after I died. A man like him, a complete and utter scum of the earth. How could he ever be worthy of my love? I let out a scornful laugh. "Logan Shen, in your eyes, am I just some fool you can lie to and manipulate however you want?" He froze slightly, then snapped back, a trace of anger in his voice. "When have I ever lied to you? In my last life," he continued bitterly. "I took care of you for 17 years without complaint. What more do you want from me?" I laughed coldly. "Took care of me? Maybe for the first 2 years before marriage. You did take care of me a little, but most of the time I was home alone, hobbling around on crutches, hopping on one leg, taking care of myself. Later, after we got married and you got rich, you hired a nanny and then acted like you were some kind of saint. Logan Shen, hand on your heart. How many times did you actually take care of me?" His face flushed bright red. "I had to work, didn't I? I had to earn money, didn't I? All the social events, all the business trips. I did it all for you, for our family. Do you think the 200,000 yuan I gave you every month fell out of the sky?" "Social events, business trips," I repeated mockingly. "Was hooking up with Emily Lin at the Blue Bay Villa part of your business? Or was attending your daughter's parent-teacher meetings in junior high counted as a business trip too?" At the mention of Emily Lin and their daughter, Logan's expression changed dramatically. His face drained of color. After a brief silence, he suddenly let out a strange twisted laugh. "Yuna," he said, "do you know how I felt every time we had sex and I saw the stump of your left leg? I wanted to puke, really physically sick to my stomach. Every time I slept with you, I had to take medication beforehand, forcing myself to endure it just to get through." "If that's what you mean by lying to you," he sneered, "then yeah, I lied to you." Every word he spoke was like a knife dipped in poison, stabbing straight into my heart and twisting. I tried my best to stay calm, but my jaw trembled uncontrollably. Tears welled up, threatening to overflow. No, I refused to break down in front of garbage like him. I stood up, lifted my right hand, and with all the strength I had, slapped him hard across the face. "Logan, I gritted out. "You're nothing but a piece of . God damn it. Why couldn't that car have just killed you back then?" His face snapped to the side from the force of the slap. He pressed his bleeding lip with the tip of his tongue, his Adam's apple bobbing. I took a deep breath, forcing the tremble out of my voice. "Today," I said coldly, "I'm not here to hear about how much you hated me. I'm not here to talk about how I once saved your life either. All of that is in the past. From now on, neither of us needs to ever bring it up again. I came here for two things. 1, to break up with you. 2, to get my money back. From this moment on, we're done completely." I stood at the foot of his bed, arms crossed, staring silently at him as he angrily called relative after relative, asking to borrow money. When I got the Alipay notification that 57,170 yuan had been deposited into my account, I immediately blocked every way he could contact me right in front of him. As I was about to turn and leave, his cold voice sounded behind me. "Yunishu," he spat. "I'll be waiting to see how well you survive without me. Let's see how long you can rely on your greedy father and scheming stepmother. And don't come crawling back to me later. I might not be so generous next time." My steps paused for a moment. Unbidden, the faces of that disgusting pair surfaced in my mind. That woman was my mother's cousin. After my mother was diagnosed with late-stage cervical cancer, she had come to help take care of her. But in reality, she ended up in my father's bed. After my mother died, I became a thorn in their side, an unwanted burden. My father only had eyes for her and her daughter from a previous marriage, scheming day and night to drive me, barely 14 years old at the time, out of the house. My dad acted like he saw nothing. Worse, under that woman's manipulation, he even pressured me to drop out of school and go work to make money. Of course I refused. Fortunately, I had excellent scores on my high school entrance exams and my tuition fees were waived. Later, through hard work, I earned scholarships, and by selling the gold bracelet my mother had left me, I barely managed to scrape through 3 years of high school. Logan knew exactly how awful my family situation was. He knew how much I hated those two disgusting people. Yet now he was deliberately using them to provoke me. Fury rushed to my head. I turned abruptly, marched back to his bedside, raised my hand, and slapped him across the face again. Then I spat right onto his face. "You want me to come crawling back to you?" I sneered. "It's noon right now. Are you dreaming in broad daylight? You and those two filthy animals, you're all the same. Cut from the same disgusting cloth." Logan's face twisted in rage. The veins on his forehead popped up visibly. He suddenly lunged at me from the hospital bed, but because of his injured right leg, he crashed heavily to the ground. "You shrew!" he roared through gritted teeth as if he wanted to tear me apart. I looked down at him coldly, then turned and slammed the door behind me as I left. I had completely cut off all contact with Logan, but news about him still inevitably found its way to me through classmates. I heard he developed a severe infection after surgery leading to sepsis, and had to stay in the ICU for over a month. His parents came to the school to help him file for a leave of absence. Emily Lynn, trying to encourage him, wore a white veil on her head and took a photo of herself kissing Logan on his hospital bed. Someone even posted a thread about their romance on the campus forum. Classmates praised Emily's unwavering devotion, calling it true love. But I had no time or interest to pay attention to them. I was busy preparing for the Advanced English Proficiency exam, busy studying for graduate school entrance exams, busy running freely on my healthy legs, savoring the feeling of sprinting without restraint. Every day I immerse myself in BBC News reports and TED speeches, practicing simultaneous interpretation even in my dreams. The name Logan had long been blurred and washed away by endless study and hard work. It wasn't until winter of my senior year, just before New Year's, that I saw Logan again. The graduate exams had just ended a few days earlier, and I finally allowed myself a small moment of relaxation. That day, I was sitting by the artificial lake with a cup of hot cocoa, watching the gulls playing and circling over the water. Suddenly, not far away, a heated argument broke out. "Logan-shan, why aren't you staying put in the rental house? What are you doing running around campus acting crazy? Look at yourself. You're not even human anymore. You scared all my friends away." The woman's voice was full of anger and disdain. Following the voice, I looked past a bare kapok tree and spotted two familiar figures. Despite the freezing winter weather, Logan was only wearing a wrinkled plaid shirt. He was painfully thin, hunched over a crutch, looking utterly pitiful. His eyes were bloodshot as he laughed bitterly and shouted, "Friends? You call them friends? You're all over each other like animals and you still call it friendship. Emily Lynn, I was only on medical leave for a little while. And you couldn't wait to hook up with someone else behind my back. No wonder you haven't been answering my calls or replying to my messages. If I hadn't come here today, I wouldn't have even known you were cheating." Emily's face showed clear impatience. "My life is none of your business," she snapped. "What? You think I should stay loyal to you? If I'd known you were going to end up as a level 7 disabled person, I never would have gotten involved with you in the first place. If I even dared bring you home, my parents would beat me half to death." Logan trembled all over, his voice filled with rage. "Don't forget who I became like this for," he screamed. "If it weren't for you, if it weren't because I was trying to buy you something, I would have never gotten hit by that car." "Then go to the police," Emily said coldly. "Go on, have me arrested if you can. You were the one who wasn't paying attention when you crossed the street. You getting hit was just bad luck for that driver, not my fault. I'm warning you. Stay the hell away from me from now on. Don't ever come looking for me again. There's nothing between us anymore." Emily Lynn said coldly, then turned and left without hesitation. Logan-shan's body swayed as if all his strength had been drained. His crutch clattered to the ground, and he collapsed heavily to the right. I stood there, the corners of my mouth curled in a mocking smile, watching the whole pathetic scene unfold. Struggling on the ground, Logan finally managed to prop himself up. But just as he lifted his head, his eyes accidentally met mine across the distance. He shuddered violently as if struck by lightning and froze in place under the biting winter wind. The following Monday morning at Starbucks, I walked into class hurriedly, earbuds in, carrying a steaming bag of soup dumplings and soy milk. I had just found a seat when my friend Xuan came over and plopped down beside me. He bumped my elbow mysteriously. I took out an earbud, puzzled. Yin leaned in and lowered his voice. "Yuna, did you hear?" He couldn't hide the gossiping excitement on his face. Logan-shan's girlfriend from the arts department hooked up with a freshman from the sports academy. He grinned, clearly thrilled. Yesterday, that girl and the freshman got a hotel room together, and Logan caught them red-handed. He tried to fight the guy, but come on, he's got a crippled leg. No way he could beat a sports student. So yeah, he got sent back to the hospital again last night. My hand, which was opening the breakfast wrapper, paused for a moment. Yin kept talking. "Even the police got involved yesterday. Both the freshman and the girl were taken to the station. Total chaos." Then he suddenly grabbed my wrist, eyes wide and sparkling. "Tell me, doesn't hearing this make you feel good?" I smiled and nodded. "Yet it really does. They deserve it," I added. Xuan burst into laughter. "Now that's more like it. Ever since you broke up with Logan-shan, I haven't seen you smile much. There are 3-legged frogs that are rare, but 2-legged men, plenty of them out there." I looked at him, feeling grateful. Among all my classmates, Xuan was the only one who consistently treated me with kindness. In everyone else's eyes, I was the heartless girl who had broken up with Logan right after his accident. An unforgivable, cold-blooded opportunist. Yin bumped my shoulder again, grinning. "I heard you even passed the advanced English pronunciation oral exam on your first try. That's amazing." I laughed lightly. "Maybe I just got lucky. Well, dinner's on me tonight." "You pick the place," he said happily. The semester flew by. Before I knew it, the first half of senior year was almost over. After our last exam in financial engineering, many students started packing up and leaving campus. Xuan had a lot of luggage. He called me to help him carry it to a taxi parked outside the school gate. After sending him off, I returned to the dorm and found that the other 3 roommates had already left. I stood alone in the empty dormitory, an unexpected wave of sadness washing over me. I still remembered that September when I first stepped onto campus, shyly greeting them. And now, just like that, graduation was around the corner. Next semester, except for a few classmates staying behind to prepare for the graduate school exams, everyone else would scatter across the country for internships. The next time we'd all gather would probably be at our thesis defense. I washed my face and stood in front of the mirror for a long time, feeling an overwhelming emptiness. Grabbing my canvas bag, I headed downstairs to the supermarket to buy some milk and dry snacks. In a few days, even the campus supermarket would close for the holidays. As I walked out of the dormitory building, I immediately spotted a familiar figure standing not far away. I looked away coldly. Logan Shun was standing by the passageway, leaning on a crutch. I pretended not to see him, and tried to walk past quickly. The moment he saw me, his eyes lit up with surprise. He awkwardly hobbled forward on his crutch, jumping twice to block my path. "Yuna, you're here," he said eagerly. "I have something to say to you." I had no interest in any further entanglement with him. "Move," I said coldly. "You're blocking my fresh air." His eyes turned slightly red, staring at me with a deep, lingering affection. "Yuna, don't be like this. I was waiting here just to see you. You don't have anywhere to go during winter break, right?" "I rented the apartment we lived in during our past life," Logan Shin said. "I'll help you move your things there. We can spend New Year's together this year." I rubbed my temples in frustration. Did he seriously think I would miss that cramped prison-like apartment? "Logan Shin, when are you going to stop?" I said coldly. "Weren't you the one who said that in the next life, even if the mountains are high and the rivers are wide, we should never meet again? And now you're standing here pretending to be all sentimental. Who are you trying to fool?" I moved to step past him, but Logan grabbed my arm tightly. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice desperate. "I was blinded by others. I take it all back." He raised his hand and slapped himself twice across the face. "Yuna, I regret everything. Let's get back together. I swear to you, I'll treat you well for the rest of my life." I rolled my eyes so hard I thought they might stick. Seriously, this was beyond ridiculous. I yanked my arm free forcefully. "Get your filthy hands off me," I snapped. "You have no right to even touch me." Logan's face went pale, his eyes misting over with confusion and hurt. "How can you be so heartless?" he whispered. "We were married for over a decade. I don't believe you have no feelings for me at all." He actually had the nerve to accuse me of being heartless. Had he ever once considered whether he had been heartless when he treated me like trash in our past life? Seeing that he still stubbornly blocked my way, I raised my foot and kicked him hard in the shin. The good leg. Logan let out a cry of pain and stumbled back several steps, falling heavily to the ground. I shrugged innocently. "I already told you to get lost," I said coldly. "If you keep pestering me, I'll start to think you're illegally restricting my freedom." This was just self-defense. Logan lay on the ground looking up at me with a heartbreaking expression, his voice full of misplaced affection. "Yuna, I don't blame you. If hurting me makes you feel better, then so be it. Kick me as much as you want, as long as you can forgive me." Looking at his pitiful, self-dragging face, I feared if I stayed a second longer, I might actually kick him again, just out of sheer disgust. With no one left blocking my path, I didn't waste any more time. I stepped over him and walked away. By late February, the results of the graduate school entrance exams were released. My score was good, more than 20 points higher than my last practice test. An extraordinary performance. Considering my abilities and playing it safe, I didn't aim for the top-tier universities. Instead, I applied to a popular major in a strong second-tier university, Smart Finance. Then came the nerve-wracking preparation for the second round of exams. The next time I heard about Logan Shin was half a year later after I had already started my graduate program. After that day when I kicked him to the ground, he had continued to harass me for a while. But each time, I either beat him up, called security, or reported him to the police. Gradually, he stopped appearing in front of me. One day, I had just come out of the financial lab when I received a WeChat voice message from Xuanyan. He told me that Logan Shun and Emily Lin had gotten married, and had even invited quite a few of our old classmates. Curious, I asked. Weren't they broken up? Then I heard a story so explosive it nearly made me drop my phone. During her internship, Emily Lin had been working as a music teacher at a private elite elementary school. She ended up having an affair with one of the students' fathers. The student's mother found out and leaked explicit photos and chat logs between Emily and the man online. And the man wasn't just anyone. He was a senior executive at a listed company. That night, the story exploded all over the trending searches. Headlines blared. Executive and intern caught in car sex scandal. Private school music teacher exposed for affair. Wife reveals explicit chats between husband and intern. Shortly after the scandal broke, Emily Lin was drugged one night on her way home. When she woke up, her hands were covered in blood. It turned out the tendons in both her wrists had been deliberately and precisely severed. Though after treatment, she could still manage daily life. Playing instruments like the guzheng or the piano was forever out of reach. And that was when Logan Shin swooped back into her life. I asked Xuan Yan. Let me guess, he went running to her? Yin laughed. Exactly. Logan sought her out himself, promising to take care of her for the rest of her life. Just a few days ago, they had held a big grand wedding ceremony. My boyfriend went too, Xuan said. I chuckled. They really are a match made in hell. 2 lifetimes, and they still ended up together. After graduating from my master's program, I landed a spot through campus recruitment at an international finance company, becoming a management trainee. My work required frequent travel between Shanghai and Hong Kong. I got busier than ever, but I still made time to date. My boyfriend was a fellow alum I had met during graduate school, majoring in artificial intelligence. On Valentine's Day, since I was working in Hong Kong, I spent a long time chatting with him on the phone after work. By the time I hung up, it was already late into the night. When I opened WeChat, I saw over 100 unread messages in our old college group chat. Everyone seemed to be talking about Emily Lin and Logan Shin. Curious, I scrolled up through the messages. The earliest one was a forwarded news article. Woman unable to endure domestic violence poisons family with rat poison. In the news photo, the woman in a yellow detention center vest, head bowed during an interview, was unmistakably Emily Lin. According to Emily's statement, after marrying Logan, her life had become a living hell. Not only did she have to care for a crippled husband, but she also had to serve her in-laws. Even when she got pregnant, her mother-in-law still ordered her to do housework. When Emily asked to rest a little longer, her mother-in-law shoved her violently, causing her to crash into the table and miscarry the child. But Logan didn't feel sorry for her. Instead, he cursed her out, calling her useless for failing to protect the baby. Right after surgery, when she returned home, Logan beat her severely. From then on, it was as if he had been possessed by a demon. He would come up with new ways to torment her. And every time he saw her kneeling and crying in pain, a sick, twisted pleasure would flash across his face. She lived every day under fear and despair. Emily had tried to escape, tried to divorce, tried asking her parents for help, but every time it only led to more beatings from Logan and his parents. Finally, she broke. The long-term oppression and hopelessness pushed her to give up struggling altogether. She bought a large amount of rat poison and secretly laced the food she served to the 3 of them over and over. It wasn't until her mother-in-law suddenly collapsed from vomiting and had to be rushed to the hospital that the truth came out. Staring at the news, I felt neither satisfaction nor pity. Maybe true detachment was when even seeing their downfall felt utterly irrelevant. In the 18th month of my management trainee program, I finally passed the final evaluation. When the HR director quoted my base salary offer, I instinctively held my breath. And that wasn't even including the year-end performance bonuses I could earn. Life truly felt bright again. I had a healthy body, a career I was proud of, and a like-minded partner who loved me. In my last life, I had been trapped in endless physical pain and emotional suffering. But now I was standing at the starting point of a whole new life. The wind from the other side of the world blew toward me, sharp and free. Only occasionally in the stillness of late nights, I would feel an inexplicable emptiness inside. Until one night, while working late, A random glance at the city lights stirred up old memories. Those disgusting faces of my father and stepmother. It had been 6 or 7 years since we last spoke. Maybe it was time to check in on their lives. Taking advantage of my upcoming vacation, I decided to return to my hometown. Coincidentally, or perhaps not, the day I arrived happened to be the day of my stepsister's engagement party. It was obvious the whole family was thrilled about her fiancé. If my dad and stepmother had tails, they would have wagged them straight up to the sky. The fiancé was the son of a factory owner, tall, handsome, and wealthy. No wonder my stepsister gazed at him with so much love and happiness. My father and stepmother barely reacted when they saw me come home, treating me as coldly as ever. The only time their enthusiasm flared up was when they bragged about their daughter landing a golden fiancé. During those few days back home, I quietly dug around and found out more about the factory owned by my stepsister's soon-to-be-in-laws. I saw a job posting for a receptionist at their family factory on a recruitment website. So I spent a hefty sum hiring a beautiful amateur actress and carefully crafted a detailed script. The plan was for her to apply for the job, get close to my dear stepsister's fiancé, and if she succeeded in getting them to break up, I promised an additional bonus of 200,000 yuan. Of course, I never forced her to do anything illegal. If he chose to fall for her on his own, that would be his problem. It only took about 3 months before news came that my stepsister and her fiancé had broken up. Another 2 months later, the actress sent me a transfer of 8,888 yuan along with a picture of 2 marriage certificates. The bride was her. The groom unmistakably was my stepsister's ex-fiancé. Before I could even process what had happened, her video call popped up. As soon as I answered, her cheerful voice rang out. "Sister, accept the red envelope. Jimming and I are getting married next month. Will you be my maid of honor?" I was a bit stunned. After a few seconds, I quickly responded, "Oh right. I'll send you the bonus. Same bank account as last time, right?" But she interrupted me immediately. "I haven't even properly thanked you for helping me meet Jiaming. I don't want the bonus anymore. By the way," she added, "I found out yesterday that I'm pregnant. Can I ask you to be my baby's godmother?" When she noticed my hesitation, she sweetened the deal with something I couldn't refuse. "If you ever need another professional actor in the future," she said with a knowing tone, "I can introduce you to some." I laughed and asked, "Do you know any older actors like in their 40s or 50s? I heard her patting her chest confidently on the other end of the line. "Of course I do." She then sent me the date and location of the wedding. "Sister, you must come," she insisted. Now maybe some people would say I was being cruel and innocent lives got hurt. But back then, when her mother climbed into my dying mother's hospital bed and pushed her into coughing up blood, when they shamelessly moved into my bedroom and threw all my belongings into the apartment's trash bins like garbage, when they rallied my classmates at school to bully me and call me the rat, no one cared whether I was innocent or not. If her mother could steal my father away so easily back then, why couldn't someone else steal her man? Now from another perspective, wasn't I actually doing her a favor by helping her dodge a bullet before marriage? After all, any man who could be easily swayed wasn't worth keeping. And if someday she finally realized that and wanted to thank me, I would sincerely tell her there's no need to thank me. This is just what an older sister should do. A few months later, on a breezy spring afternoon, I sat alone at a small cafe by the river, watching the sunlight dance over the water's surface. Life had become so different from the one I used to know. There were no cages, no crutches, no suffocating promises masked as love. I had my work, my health, my freedom, and most importantly, I had myself. Sometimes memories of the past would creep back like faint shadows. The twisted faces of Logan Shun, Emily Lin, my father, and my stepmother. Those scars were real, but they no longer hurt. They were just reminders that I had survived, that I had walked through fire and come out whole. In the distance, laughter from a group of children floated in the air, pure and sweet. I smiled. The world was vast, and life was still full of endless possibilities. I took a sip of my coffee, stood up, and walked toward the sunlight, no longer carrying the weight of a broken past, but stepping firmly into a future that was finally completely mine.